You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Hi, this is James Walsh. Is this Sam Adonis?
Yes, sir. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm very good. I'm just sitting here watching some old German wrestling from the mid-'90s.
You know, you sound like a guy I'd get along with real well.
Oh, man. It's weird because I'm one of the only ones that actually pays attention. You'd be surprised how many guys of my era and the modern independent era don't pay attention to any aspect of history. They think of it, anything before Ring of Honor in 2005 didn't exist.
Right.
There's so much out there.
I've often said, and we're not recording we are recording, but I wasn't going to use it just yet. But I've often said that, like, when I get dejected and I watch a show that makes me go, why am I into this stuff? I'll go back and watch something from '88, and it'll blow my mind and remind me exactly why I'm, obsessed with this stuff. So there you go.
But it's almost like my dirty little secret in a way, because what's old is always new again. And nobody is going to the past, So me just trying to do what I do and be a little bit different than everyone else, I could literally see one tiny little detail in this, this handheld match from 1994 and put it in a match. And next thing you know, that's what's viral on TikTok or whatever,
Exactly. It's very, very, very different times that we're in, but it's cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. It kind of sprang up on me a little bit last minute. He kind of told me, hey, can you do an interview today? All right, sure. So,
yeah, no, I screwed that up. He messaged me on Tuesday, and I didn't press send on the text. I messaged him back, so he gave me a message again last night, and I'm like, oh shoot!
All right,
just trying to make it happen as fast as I could. So sorry about that.
No problem. Hey, I'm ready to go. So, are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, we'll get started here in 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Joining us on the Newsmaker line is another guy from the MLW show, the MLW Underground roster from Azteca Underground. Of course, I'm speaking of Sam Adonis. Are you with me, sir?
Here I am. I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon, morning, or night, or whenever the listeners are listening to this interview.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on. I've been watching a lot of your interviews. I got to do the Zoom thing. I just never wanted to be on camera, but we're doing it old school. We're doing it just voice to voice here, so I kind of like it.
It's okay by me. That way I don't have to dress up too nice.
I don't have to comb my hair either. That's another good thing.
Exactly.
All right. So, like I said, you're working with MLW. MLW is going through some major changes right now with the fact that they have the deal with Reels TV. And, it's really cool for me to see this company, which, we were just talking about old wrestling beforehand. I remember watching it on Sunshine, 20 years ago, literally 20 years ago, and here we are.
Believe it or not, I would say there might be, 5 or 6 wrestlers my age in the entire country that could say the same thing. So I remember right after ECW, went away, I remember getting the first MLW Genesis DVD from highspots.com, and I was fascinated because they almost picked up the pieces where ECW left off. But then again, they also crossed over and brought that, new element of the American Indies with the Low Keys, Homicides, and, they bring in Dr. Death from Japan and Kojima. So, their whole lineage and legacy has been very exciting to me. And I think, right now it's very exciting because I think it's definitely another transitional period of their company. And it just feels really cool, and it's very, exciting to be a part of it right now.
Absolutely. And, of course, the one thing that MLW has always done well is work with other companies, and that, of course, is AAA, which is kind of like your home away from home. Is it cool to see these two companies working together and to see how much professional wrestling is able to do that, whereas, you're never going to see the XFL and the NFL team up and do a co-branded show, a co-branded game.
It's awesome. Conan has always been a very strong ally of MLW. He's done some work for them, in creative capacities in the past, and he still is, full-blown creative and the, head booker of AAA. So he always sees it from both sides of the coin. He knows what it's like to be a promoter. He knows what it's like to be a wrestler. So he does as much as he can to help all of us out. And, I'm so grateful for everything he's done for me, but he's the one that's essentially, made it possible for me to pick up the position with MLW. And it's great because there's so much talent in Mexico that really, hasn't been seen yet. And MLW has the perfect form. It has the great television show. It has the high production. It has the talent to pull it off. And it really is cool to be able to see these guys working together. And, in a way, it kind of feels like every time I go do an MLW show, we're all under the MLW banner, and everybody works together, but it has that super show feel to it. It feels like one of these big convention shows. You don't know who's going to walk through the door, whether it's, Raven showed up last time or Lince Dorado, luchadors, Japanese wrestlers, whoever it's going to be. It definitely has a very exciting atmosphere to it.
Very cool, very cool. And one of your partners on the show is Cesar Duran. In fact, you guys just posted on MLW's Twitter account a promo you guys cut yourself. You got Taya Valkyrie, Johnny Hennigan appearing in that too. Very, very cool promo to see Azteca Underground on the show. But I wanted to ask you about Cesar Duran. He's a guy who was an actor. In fact, I saw him on a septic tank commercial just a couple months ago, and he fits so perfectly. Obviously, he came from Lucha Underground as Dario Cueto, Cesar Duran as he is in MLW. Is he a natural to be a heel in wrestling?
So I kind of missed the boat with Lucha Underground. I was doing, my career didn't really line up for it to be able for me to watch it. I was in Europe most of the time, and then I was wrestling in Mexico, so I didn't really get to see what all the buzz was about, but I knew there was buzz. And it had something unique and different. This all kind of fell into place, the natural progression of my career plus his career, and we ended up coming here, and I knew that everybody spoke highly of him. Everybody, they do take that different approach with the creative side of Lucha Underground, which is kind of blended into MLW, and it's been awesome to work with him because it's just it almost, we're so used to everything being kind of off the cuff in professional wrestling. He's one of the only actors that I've been around that it can actually just walk into a wrestling dressing room and just nail it. And you can see the amount of preparation that goes into it. He's an absolute gem of a human being, great to share a locker room with, always in a cheerful mood, but you can see him kind of pacing back and forth for a while. And then it's not till, the taping actually begins and you realize that he's in, 18 segments on a 36 segment show. He has, he's remembering so much and just nailing everything he can. It's awesome to have him there. There's certain tricks of the, whether it be how he remembers lines or there's certain aspects of the entertainment industry that he's bringing to wrestling that some of us might not be able to know. And he's also learning on the fly by some of the tricks of the trade and, the impromptu nature of professional wrestling. And it's been a really cool learning experience for both of us. But I think more than anything, he's a star. You can see the guy, if he's going to walk into a convenience store, you're going to look at that guy and just say, who is he? Not the biggest guy, but he just has a glow to him. And I think overall he elevates our program.
I agree. I completely agree. And we'll come back to MLW and to AAA in just a moment. But let's talk a little bit about our roots in wrestling, your roots in wrestling in particular, because I didn't have the benefit of growing up in a second-generation family, but I found it kind of accidentally. I was flipping through the channels one night when I was a kid, and I saw Hulk Hogan, and I'm showing my age here, by the way, Hulk Hogan and JYD hamming it up in the ring on a Saturday night's main event, and I was like, what is this? I need to know everything there is to know about this. This is it. And here we are, gosh, 38 years later, and I am still obsessed with pro wrestling. You had the benefit of being in a family where your dad was a promoter. At what point did the wrestling bug bite you? Because I know my two kids, they didn't all get right into it. My son now definitely has, but it took a little while for them to kind of get bit by the bug.
So I actually tell this story quite often because it's quite entertaining, and it all pertains to what I've done and how my voyage has unfolded. But I don't really remember I don't remember a day when I decided I liked wrestling. Honestly, I was obsessed with the toys. When I was 2-3 years old, my brother had all the old big rubber LJNs.
LJNs, me too.
The Hasbros. We had the AWA toys. We had everything. So I just I always wanted these toys, and I was excited to get new ones. I remember when my dad would come home from a business trip and, he'd have wrestlers with us. And that kind of made me, it was like, since I would say maybe 2 or 3 years old, I remember always constantly being on a hunt for new. So we would get wrestling magazines, and I would look through the magazines. I would say, I wonder if there's a toy of Shane Douglas. I wonder if there's a toy of this guy. Oh, look at this guy from Japan, Jushin Thunderlight. I wonder if he has a toy. So, being a little kid, just imagining things, I'm always thinking about what kind of toys were out there. That happening, like I said, it opened up the door to finding, the videos we had and just studying. And I kind of, like you said, once I found it, I understood. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I love it, but I need to know more about it. And we had, so I was born in '89, but we had a lot of the old Saturday Night's Main Events, Clash of the Champions, the Memphis wrestling tapes, the golden era of wrestling tapes from the 60s. We had those on VHS probably from before I was even born. Mm-hmm. But, most kids grow up watching Ninja Turtles and He-Man. Mm-hmm. I literally would turn on Hulkamania by Coliseum Video every day.
Yep.
Because I wanted to see, who is Don Morocco against Hulk Hogan? Who's Don Morocco? Why isn't he on TV now? And, that mixed with the magazines, there was always so much more I was looking for. And then when ECW came around, that really changed my life.
Yeah.
That really was like, that's the thing that shook me up. And I remember just freaking out and thinking, oh my gosh, how is this? This isn't Monday Night Raw. This isn't any of the old stuff I saw. This is new, but it's good. And, that essentially led to my tape trading and my research of all the Japanese and Mexican wrestling. And in a way, it's all kind of played into my career and who I've become, because I'd make the joke, I was just more of a wrestling nerd than everybody. I needed to know it all.
Absolutely. And you talked a lot about learning, and I even mentioned it, I need to know more about this, learning constantly, more input. Johnny Five, need more input, that kind of thing going on. I was curious because you kind of did things a little bit backwards in some ways, because your run with WWE, your opportunity with WWE came pretty early. And I would say that you probably have learned more since when, the end of the Yellow Brick Road came early. You seem to have learned more since then and really advanced more since your time with WWE. Would I be correct in kind of assuming that?
That is absolutely correct. And I think, now, at the time, it was the most heartbreaking experience of my life getting released from WWE. But as you get a little bit older and wiser, you realize the universe tends to unfold as it should. And everything happens for a reason. I was the young kid that was so obsessed and got lucky and caught a break and got signed. If that didn't happen, the doors that have opened since then wouldn't have opened. I was able to get a job in Europe for All-Star Wrestling, Brian Dixon. I was able to, be taken seriously in Mexico with CMLL. All of that came from that stamp of approval that was the 10 months under contract with WWE. So, yes, I've definitely done my learning since then. But at the same time, to say that it was backwards might not be correct, because if I didn't have that first, who's to say if I would have had the opportunities that I ended up getting? So, I think there's so much, I think coming down to being a fan, a student of the game, if you will, there's so much to learn from everyone. And, you just can't, you can't grasp how much you didn't know until you look back at it. And now I think of all the time I spent, thinking I was a good young wrestler. And now you look and say, man, it's the distance I've traveled and where I've come to being able to get to. Now it's to the point where I feel very confident where I'm at. I know that, I'm right about to hit that stride. And, I think that the best is yet to come. And it all comes just from the natural progression of what happened in the past.
Very cool. Is it a conscious decision to, and obviously in the world of wrestling, the genius kept the Poffo name, but Randy Savage became Randy Savage. Is it a conscious decision on your part to kind of not advertise the fact, hey, I'm Corey Graves' brother, and and I guess conversely for him as well, that my brother's a wrestler too. You guys kind of live your own lives and stay in your own lane. Is that a conscious decision on your part?
Definitely a conscious decision. But it's still always going to be the dark cloud over my career. I definitely think there's been a lot. There's big shoes to fill. I think if you were to look at me as an individual performer, as an independent wrestler, you know, there's very few guys that have had the level of career I've had in the last 10 years. And I
That's
think
true.
overall, a lot of people still fall back on, oh, that's just Corey Graves' brother. And they're not looking at my individual accomplishments and what I've done. You know, it's not in a plane against other independent wrestlers or other 33-year-old pro wrestlers. It's in the realm of, oh yeah, that's somebody's little brother. So I try to stay away from it the best I can. I don't think it's not that big of a deal anymore. But at the same time, I think there's always going to be a lot of people that just kind of discredit some of what I do because, without sounding terrible, my opportunities weren't given to me by my brother. I earned them myself.
Absolutely.
And if my brother were in my shoes, I don't know if he'd be able to get those opportunities, So I just kind of tend to stay away from it. I'm sure one day somewhere there's going to be, probably some money to be made here. He's so well respected and loved on TV, and I'm kind of in a good position in my public eye right now. So I think the future is bright, but it's not something that I actively wake up every day and try to hide. But at the same time, it's I don't need to broadcast it either.
Very cool, very cool. And with the last name Adonis, people probably thought you were adorable Adrian Adonis's relative in some way.
Oh, that was great. That's happened to me multiple times. And literally, I was in London, England, and someone came up to me and goes, hey, I know who your family is. And I said, oh, do you? Yeah, I remember. Well, adorable Adrian. I was like, yes. If I'm making people remember Adrian Adonis, I'm doing something right.
That's awesome. So seeing you really come into your own where I've seen it the most, at least, from my vantage point and what I have access to, has been with AAA and with your role in Mexico. And you've taken to Spanish really well. I mean, like, I'm not talking like my 10th grade level Spanish. You seem to take to it really quickly. Which came first, your knowledge of how to speak Spanish or your becoming a Mexican wrestling in Mexico?
So I think that's like it's they kind of played into each other as well. I think honestly I was able to learn Spanish quite easily because I've always had like I've watched hours and hours and hours of lucha as a kid. And I would study this stuff online and learn luchador names. And what does that mean? That means hurricane. What does this mean? That means, dog. And when I got to Mexico, there was there was a bit of I can't call it omniscience, but that would be the word. You kind of I probably had a little bit better perspective of the language than your average, American would, just because of the amount of lucha I watched. That tied into the wrestling side of it, understanding, what the wrestling culture of it is, being able to make friends with a lot of the wrestlers, and then just, being in a sink or swim environment where you have no choice but to learn. It all happened so quickly. And about 3 months in, I would say I had about 40% of my Spanish, which ultimately led to me to a lot of radio and TV appearances, which really added to my stock quite quickly.
And one of the I won't make you get into politics because believe me, there's no easier way other than lending somebody money to lose friends than to talk politics. But you did make national headlines both in Mexico and in the United States with your pro-Trump character that you had in AAA. And I guess my question would be is that walking a razor's edge where there are tensions so high and maybe not ever higher than then? And by the way, in full disclosure, I am a Trump supporter, and that does not make me a bad guy either. But is it difficult to do that in a place where you're going to get met with that kind of hate? So
hindsight being 2020, I was so thrilled about everything. I was having the time of my life. I mean, I was going out to dinner with CNN producers and going to, have lunch with Reuters and just doing so much. I really felt like I was doing something great. And I was proud of it because to me, seeing big picture, thinking of professional wrestling, thinking about, what do you want to do? You want to draw money. You want to, get people talking. If people that aren't watching wrestling tune in to see you, you're doing your job. And that's in a way how it was in Mexico. That was the good side of it. But I think, a lot of the online fans and a lot of the wrestling fans from around the world that live, eat, sleep, breathe, and die by wrestling, that wake up to read the dirt sheets and everything like that, they never saw past that. They didn't know who I was. They didn't stop and realize, he's an American that lives in Spanish or lives in Mexico and speaks Spanish and dates a Mexican girl. They don't, they didn't see past, oh my God, that guy's a terrible human being. So I think that might have, given a lot of people sour tastes in their mouth. Coming from a wrestling family and being somebody that's been around wrestling long enough, I still think, I believe that the heel needs to be hated. I think we're at a point now where everyone knows what wrestling is, and everyone knows what a movie is. Why can a movie star commit heinous acts in a movie, and it's just a movie, but now when somebody does heinous acts in a wrestling ring, it's a cancelable offense. So I think I kind of just gave the whole situation and wrestling the benefit of the doubt. But I think in the end, it hurt me. I think, I put myself in positions where, people didn't want that. People didn't want to be bothered with politics and wrestling. So I'm glad it's over. Let's put it that way. But again, tying it all together in, perfect storm, I don't know if I'd be where I am today in AAA if it wasn't for that time in Mexico with a controversial gimmick.
Absolutely. And it even broke, I'm in Arizona, even though I have the 201 phone number here. I'm in Arizona. So it broke like on our nightly news, like a pro-Trump wrestler in Mexico. That's the lead in. More at 11 kind of thing.
That was the fun part. That was the fun part about Mexico is because they, Lucha's so big. And the best way I can explain Lucha in Mexico is basically how Lucha wrestling was in 1988 here. Imagine if we stayed straight instead of zigging or zagging. ECW came around, the Attitude Era came around. We kind of went in a totally different direction. Well, imagine if we stayed straight and people still like their good guys and bad guys and cartoons and astronauts or whatever. That's kind of where they still are. So they like coming to the show and they like to get wound up. But the same people that were, screaming at me and throwing beer bottles were the first ones that wanted pictures with me after the show.
There you go.
I think a lot of people just wanted, they looked at the situation as they say the word cheap heat. And I kind of beg to differ for that because cheap heat, you have to be willing to make yourself look like an ass. If you're going to go out there and sacrifice your social media followers and your merchandise sales for the sake of the show, that comes at a pretty heavy cost, not just being cheap, if you ask me.
I'd agree. And circling back to MLW's big TV deal now is with Reels. And, for me, I've got to be honest, I'm 41. I'm not exactly ready to get into the rocking chair just yet. But for me, I still view wrestling that makes it to basic cable on a higher plane than some other channels, than some other outlets like streaming services and so forth. What does it mean for MLW to have cracked that barrier and to be on basic cable with Reels?
I don't think it gets enough play or attention from anyone in the wrestling business. I think right now, there's a fictional narrative that there's a wrestling war happening, which, is not really the case at all. I feel like, I think everybody has an agenda now. Every newspaper, every website, everybody needs to get their sales and their Patreons hot and their, subscription service. So they're painting these fictional battle lines and trying to tell everybody, that you're not supposed to like this one if you like that one. Whereas overall, just being on a major national television channel is huge news. Look at when ECW came to TNN. I mean, that was huge in 1999. That's WWE, Impact, AEW, WWE are the only three that have been on anything national in the last,
30
10 years.
Yeah.
And now there's a fourth one. And now not only that, this fourth one has a lot of good talent. I think the cool thing about what we're doing is it's kind of, it has that ECW vibe to it where I remember Beyond the Mat, they mentioned the Ellis Island of pro wrestling.
That's right.
And I think we have that now because, the independents are more lucrative for an independent than they've ever been. You don't need to go out and wrestle 150 shows a year to make a living. You can pick and choose where you want to be and how much you need to get paid to do your match. There's always going to be, guys out there that like to stay relevant. They're going to come. They want to work with good wrestlers. They want to be in good productions, and they don't necessarily need to go kill themselves on a Saturday night in front of 300 people. So I think MLW has just enough of the good stuff that it's drawing a high talent that want to come and be a part of it. And, bringing that to national television is going to be great, not only for us here now, but for future generations, because everybody wants to sign the big contract. Everybody wants to get paid as much as they can get paid. Well, until you have something to offer, the major wrestling promotions, they're going to pay you what they want to pay you. But as long as AEW keeps climbing a ladder and has big TV deals and be able, is able to offer some incentive for people to stay and to grow, next thing you know, you have, some pretty valuable talent. And then you're going to see, okay, where's he going? Is he going to AEW? Is he going to WWE? Then wrestling gets really exciting again. And I think that's, a really good thing for us as the performers.
I agree. And, I'm just watching the promo just on Twitter just today. I mean, I watch every week the real show, but since you guys started last month, but just seeing the promo today, it felt very much like one of those ECW promos that would be on the, the hardcore TV shows. And that was kind of cool. I think that's very cool, in fact.
To be honest, there's a reason why. We have Charlie Bruzies, who was the lead camera director for ECW. So he works directly with Court and MSL, and I've noticed just the production there. There's a lot of the stuff that even the best independents don't have is a lot of the stuff that MLW focuses on. I don't think MLW is ever going to try to go out there and set the internet on fire with the coolest match you've never seen. I think MLW is trying to get people that might have watched ECW, that haven't seen wrestling in 20 years, to come back. Maybe some kids who grew up and, maybe they're somebody's kids like WWE, but they're not a fan. Well, shoot, maybe Tuesday nights we'll watch it on Reels, and it's something that reminds you of being a kid. I think it's enough of an alternative that, new people could come back to it. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's just great for all of us. Just having more wrestling on TV, it's a great position for wrestlers and, anybody that wants to be a part of it.
It's the perfect name. It's got that little bit of a dirty feel, a little bit underground, but still it's mainstream wrestling, and it's the right hybrid, if you will. I know they used that in the past, but it's the right hybrid approach to pro wrestling, and I enjoy it.
Things are, one of the little details I like about it, and this is just me being a little bit weird, we use a 16-foot ring, and I love that because everybody in wrestling, everything is so cliche now. Everybody just wants to be the latest cool company on the internet that has the cool super card, that has the cool same 25 indie guys, It's all the same. I think MLW kind of going the Eric Bischoff route and trying to think of as many ways as they can be different to mainstream wrestling as possible and wrapping it all together in a pretty damn professional production.
Very cool. Now, your world champion right now is Hammerstone, and Hammerstone is a guy from my neck of the woods here in Arizona. I grew up in northern New Jersey, but I live out here in Arizona long enough to where I can call him one of our own. And what a talent he is. He looks like $1 million. He is a great wrestler. What's your thoughts on Hammerstone, and did you have any desire to challenge for the MLW Heavyweight Championship?
Hammerstone and Jacob Fatu are two of the principal reasons why I'm, excited to be a big part of MLW. I think now generally wrestlers are a lot smaller. There's not as many, hard-working heavyweights as there once was. And I would say, if you'd ask a lot of people who are the top talents over 250 pounds, I think all three of our names would come up a lot.
That's right.
I've been on plenty of shows with Hammerstone all over the country, same with Fatu, but none of us have – I have not had the chance to have singles matches with either one of them. And I just think, given what each of us are individually good at, I think all of us complement each other in a different way. And I really think there's some magic to happen when I have my matches with those two. So I don't know when or where or how it's going to happen, but I definitely think that those matches will make people really look at MLW as a true alternative, because it's not going to be the same kind of match you see on an AAW pay-per-view or a WWE pay-per-view. It's going to be something that's really not in too many places right now. And I think we have a lot of work ahead of us.
Absolutely. And when all that work is done and when things cool off a little in AAA, when feels right, when it feels like it's time, and this is probably the most Marcus question I'll ask you, but do you have any more goals? Do you still have your WrestleMania moment in mind? Is there still a desire to go back to WWE and try it again there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're not aiming for the top of the ladder, you shouldn't be on the ladder at all. You know, I come from a generation where, you know, you thrive to be the best at anything. I've always been the kind of guy, you know, I was 300 pounds when I graduated high school, and I'd watch The Rock and I say, I want to be like that guy. You know, I think now we're kind of in an era where people say, oh, you're never going to be like that, but you can be like this guy. Whereas I'm the kind of guy that say, no, I can do that. I can be the top guy. I can work to that. So, you know, I think just the amount of work I've already put in, what I've already done, how specific of shots I've called, whether it be, you know, CMLL or All Japan or AAA, you know, if you'd have known me at 12 years old, I would tell you, I would have foreshadowed my entire career, and you would not have believed it. But I knew it. So I'm very confident that the best is still yet to come. I wish everybody success. I wish on everything. I wish, you know, we all could, between MLW, AEW, New Japan, Impact, I wish we all could take wrestling back to the way it was in 1985, where everybody in the country is watching wrestling every week. You know, I don't need to be the WWE champion. I don't need to be the AEW champion. I want to be a reason why everyone loves wrestling again. You know, and I think there's so much talent out there that it can happen. I just think, you know, you got to dream big and just be willing to put the work in. You never quite know where one of us will end up.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, like I said, I've been following you for a while. Really pleased to have had the opportunity to do this. I remember when you got released and they had said, oh, Corey Graves' brother gets released or what have you. And I was thinking, yeah, that's kind of weird. And then today when I was preparing for the questions, like, oh, yeah, he's his brother. So it completely had, you know, been something that maybe I knew in the back of my mind, somewhere in the back there, and completely slipped my mind. So it's very cool that you've done it on your own.
At least in Mexico, that Corey Graves is actually Sam Adonis' brother. So these days I'll get more people thinking that way, you know?
I think you're already on your way, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do this for me. Hey, before I let you go, do you mind if I ask for a station ID?
Yep, that works. What do you need me to say?
All right, whatever you want to say, but if you could just say this is Sam Adonis and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.
This is Sam Adonis, and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.
You're blessed with an awesome voice. You should think about broadcasting when the in-ring time stuff.
I appreciate that. I did the voiceovers for my local. I have a wrestling show I'm promoting at the end of the month, and I just did my voiceovers the other night. And I've always kind of played with it, so I appreciate that.
That's awesome, man. I thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I will tag you, and I'll let Sean know when I get this up online. It'll probably be up on Tuesday in time for the Underground show.
Sounds good, my friend. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, for us.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh, yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
You maniacs, so what you gonna do when the Blaze of Mania runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, guys. We had a lovely conversation. First lady. Absolutely. Oh, look at me. She's so kooky.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Oh, my God. You win. love being interactive.
I just got some listen. I was gonna shoot him.
Yeah, I almost pissed my pants. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Excuse my language. You're gonna go to the shop. Into the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's gonna be cool. What it's all about. The purest point of view.
The living legend.
Champion. Arrogant.
You just make me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
So lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive.
Interview. I'm not just the best.
Interactive. Interview with a plastic
You
head.
earn the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional wrestling.
Made in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire.
We were sexy.
What a show.
One and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge. You're where it's at. You gotta recognize who's the best. If you're smart, make sure to tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer, knock down your door, and turn it on for you. Or else I'm gonna kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line.
Have a nice day. It's showtime.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.